My parents were both Sea Org members. My father ran away from home when he was a teenager to join the Sea Org in the way that people used to run away to join the circus.
Because my mum didn't want to join Scientology, the church actually told my dad, you should get rid of them because they're just dev teach, they're just in the way. Oh, I was already an SP apparently. My dad was doing locationals. I wasn't allowed to cry. He would pick my little finger up and make me touch walls and touch things.
So both of my parents were in it. My mum was in it from a really young age because her dad was in it. So I guess that makes me a third gen on that side. And my dad went in as a teenager off his own volition. There's a few. I did a lot of e-meter auditing as a young child from about age 6.
When people ask, how did you finally leave? What was the thing that finally happened? And for both of us, it's our children. Something happens
that prohibits authorities from being contacted or involved. You have a dangerous environment for children. Others have experienced so much worse.
I was flat out told, you're not a kid anymore. You don't need your mommy, so stop whining about needing your mommy.
I wanted to speak out, okay? I wanted to speak out, and it feels good, actually. It feels good after 20 years or more.
The abuses of Scientology are well known to anyone paying attention to the tsunami of information published over the past 20 years or so. From the critically acclaimed and multiple award-winning HBO documentary, Going Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief, to A&E's Emmy-winning series, Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath, as well as numerous books written by the brave people that escaped the clutches of Scientology and came forward to tell their stories. However, for the majority of people, Scientology is considered a harmless and quirky belief system, with some big-name celebrities involved, providing it an air of legitimacy, which is by design. Also, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution protects religious freedom, which is the very reason that L. Ron Hubbard decided to apply the veneer of religion to his applied philosophy based on his own fantasy-laden works of fiction, as well as the financial incentive of tax exemption that was revoked by the IRS and later reinstated due to an extensive campaign of harassment targeting IRS employees. The general public are generally indifferent about the crimes of Scientology because for the most part they have heard stories from followers that joined as young adults. These stories are easily dismissed as it is perceived that those people chose to follow the draconian and sadistic doctrines of L. Ron Hubbard of their own free will. What is unknown or mostly glossed over and sometimes outright denied are the crimes committed against children that were born into the cult and had no say in the dystopian existence they were forced to live. That was until the advent of SPTV and the efforts of Aaron Smith Levin to platform second and third generation Scientologists, encouraging them to speak up and even to start their own YouTube channels to raise awareness of the abuses and criminality of Scientology, particularly as it relates to children that grew up in Scientology, as he did himself. It has been said that Scientology is a criminal enterprise, operating as a business, masquerading as a religion. This is an opinion I cannot disagree with. Aaron Smith Levin has his own description.
Scientology is in fact a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult.
The abuses and criminality in Scientology are baked into Hubbard's tech and have existed since the very conception of Scientology, with Book 1, Dianetics.
The 7-year-old girl who shudders because a man kisses her is not computing. She is reacting to an engram, since at 7 she should see nothing wrong with a kiss, even a passionate one. There must have been an earlier experience, possibly prenatal, which made men are kissing very bad.
Child abuse in Scientology is rooted in the very concept of the Thetan that asserts that children are not children. They are immortal beings that have lived thousands of lifetimes throughout millennia on many different planets. Scientologists are taught to believe that children are big beings or adults in small bodies. If Scientology were to be reformed to make it compliant with common law, it would have to abandon the very concept of the Thetan. Once the concept of the Thetan is removed, the very foundation of Scientology collapses, and it becomes just another applied philosophy as Hubbard originally intended. Aaron Smith Levin began his YouTube channel in June 2015 and has interviewed scores of survivors of Scientology that have been brave enough to step out of the shadows to share their own experiences at risk of retribution from Scientology under Hubbard's fair game policy. This introduction expresses the opinions and views of the producer and are not necessarily the views of Aaron Smith Levin. The video presentation you are about to see provides a sampling of interview excerpts and commentary highlighting the impact on the lives of those that grew up in Scientology and survived to tell their stories.
I have just finished reading a book about Jim Jones and the People's Temple. Oh my God. The similarities between Jim Jones and L. Ron Hubbard, and the similarities between the People's Temple and the Sea Org specifically. Not the People's Temple and Scientology or Scientologists. The People's Temple and the Sea Org. It was not easy. To see this group, the People's Temple, that I've just grown up thinking was the ultimate epitome of a cult mindset, and to know that I spent so much of my life around and in the Sea Org thinking that it was the antithesis of anything that could have existed in something like the People's Temple. And then to see the methods, to read about the methods that Jim Jones used to recruit, to motivate, to retain people. His ends justifies the means approach to life and his movement. It was mind-boggling to me to see how similar these experiences actually were. The church does not do any work to help the poor or the homeless at all. And this is a little bit of a rant, but I'm telling you, as evil as the People's Temple became, and they did have an ends justifies the means mentality, just like Scientology does, I was struck by how at least that organization, that is viewed as one of the worst cults ever, and if you want to call bullshit, if that's an inaccurate statement, just mention it in the comments below, that even that organization created more benefit to the public at large with its social programs than Scientology ever has. And that was something that really struck me.
There's something about being in a cult that shuts you off, as L. Ron Hubbard would say, from the fruits of observation. I no longer believed in Scientology, but I did not realize how much I was holding on to this belief that at least Scientology was something really, really unique. Like, even if it was a cult, boy, is it a unique cult. Even if it's a scam and a con, oh boy, it is a uniquely, either a real unique scam or a con. And I didn't know how hard I was holding on to that idea, or even that idea was something important to me.
Yeah.
And then I read his book about being recruited into the Moonies. I was devastated. I was sobbing listening to this thing, just realizing that Scientology is garden variety bullshit. And that the manipulation techniques is not special. There's some unique ways they do it. But when I heard how the Moonies, how they recruited people, how they kept people from looking at information critical to them, how they kept people believing despite all evidence in front of their faces.
How they overworked them, so then they were so tired they couldn't process. Like, so many similarities. I was just like, this is so. It's the same but different.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is. There's only two books there's a ton of books to read, but there's only two that I always tell people to read on their way out. And that's combating cult mind control, and barefaced messiah.
My Scientology story begins with my father in 60, 61, 62. I can't remember what year, but anyway, it was before I was born. I was born in 65. My mom was at home with me in 65. She didn't want to join. She went down, she got on the cans for a bit, and she just didn't like it. He took it hook, line, and sinker. They came to America, and then I was born in Washington, D.C. Because my mom didn't want to join Scientology, the church actually told my dad, you should get rid of them because they're just DevT. They're just in the way. Oh, I was already an SP, apparently. My dad was doing locationals. I wasn't allowed to cry. He would pick my little finger up and make me touch walls and touch things. So my mom didn't want to do any of that. She's like, you can go do it. But the church convinced my dad to get rid of us. My mom didn't have a clue. It just came out of left field. And he just came home one day and he said, here, pack your bags. You and the kid are leaving. You're going back to England. Go, just throw us away. To me, this is why I go and protest, because to me, Scientology, because of it was Scientology's decision, it wasn't my dad's. My life ended up not being so great.
Which is, you know, I was born into the thing, right? My parents were both Sea Org members. My father ran away from home when he was a teenager to join the Sea Org in the way that people used to run away to join the circus. My mother, and then she divorced her husband and then ran off to California to join the circus herself. But she was a real true believer. Like, she was really honest to God, billion-year contract. She meant it. And even though they kicked her out at a certain point because of kids, because they changed the rules on having kids in the Sea Org, she continued to live her life like a Sea Org member, and she continued to work. And for a long time, she worked 3 jobs. I had no idea that we were so poor, not because she didn't have money, but because she was giving all her money to the church.
I was 5. I was born and raised in Hawaii. I grew up on Oahu, and my mom left my dad, and she went off to make a better life for us, is what she said. And she met and married a Scientologist.
Okay, so you're full on born into Scientology. Like, when your parents,
my parents got into it in the early 70s before I was born, and they were heavy into it by the time I was born.
So by the time you were born, would they have already been OT, done any OT levels or anything like that?
So my mom, from what she tells me, my mom went clear when she was 6 or 7 months pregnant with me, and then she had to wait until I was born before she started the OT levels, because Hubbard has a policy about doing OT levels when you're pregnant. Like, I think it's past the 3rd month or the 4th month, you can't do your OT levels while you're pregnant with somebody.
Really? I did not know that.
Actually fully born into Scientology, right?
Yep. So both of my parents were in it. My mum was in it from a really young age because her dad was in it. So I guess that makes me a 3rd gen on that side. And my dad went in as a teenager off his own volition. He was a competitive cyclist, and someone he was cycling with told him that he could get his injuries healed quicker with Dianetics. So kind of got him in that way.
So what are some of your earliest Scientology memories?
So, I mean, there's a few. I did a lot of e-meter auditing as a young child from about age 6. They said, you know, you need to look around you for a suppressive person. And then they pulled me in for a sec check, which I had at age 6 years old, which I remember some of it as well, actually, because it was very odd.
So were you born and raised in Scientology?
I was. And the only reason our family exists is because of Scientology. My father was working at St. Hill in the mission office worldwide. He was not a Sea Org member. He was taking LSD. So he was floated under that little thing. So yeah. And then he came over to the States in the late 70s. And my mom was working at CC New York, Celebrity Center, New York.
So my grandparents met at Narconon, when they were teenagers, basically. And they, had 3 children, one of them being my mom and then my 2 uncles. And they were together basically till death. My grandma passed away during COVID in like 2021, I believe. And since then, my grandpa's just like been on his own. He still does Scientology and stuff. But my grandma at one point was like the ED of Narconon. So they were like super heavy into it.
I was 15 at the time, mind you, while I was doing this, and I was away from my parents. My mom was in LA and my dad was in LA. So the other part of it too was that I was very much missing them. Being 15, you want to be around your parents, and I was flat out told, "You're not a kid anymore. You don't need your mommy, so stop whining about needing your mommy." But then they sent me straight to CMO Clearwater, and I was there for 2.5 years. When they sent me, I had no guardian whatsoever. I just had this person that I knew from when I lived in Washington, D.C. as a kid that was there kind of looking over me. And my mom actually had no idea that I had been sent there. And my mom, when she did find out, she was on the RPF at the time in LA and was basically told to shut up. She had no say in what happened with me at that point.
I'd say probably the earliest memories that are very, very like little glimmers of it is having like a visceral reaction to the daycare center in New York Org. Oh my God. Like to this day, if I go to the area, and the org's been completely renovated, if I got on the elevator to the 5th floor and like looked left, it's like this sense of effing doom. Like I can't stand that place. Something bad happened there, but yeah, I don't remember much. Obviously not a lot of parental or adult supervision and a lot of children. But as soon as I could, I remember being like arguing for my emancipation from the daycare, being like, but I'm an adult in a small body.
She wasn't around to be a mother, and also there was no money coming into the house because it was going to them. My mother had this whole narrative that I was talking to her as a disembodied spirit before I was born. And not just chatting, but kind of like ordering her to have a baby. Like it's my fault that she got pregnant. And this, of course, is what broke up her marriage, which she never forgave me for.
No way. Imagine saying that to
I can
your
name you
kid.
3 kids I knew growing up whose parents got cancer, got sick, and blamed their kids for it. You caused me inturbulation, so therefore I'm sick now. Children. The other thing to say about it, though, is that I really believed all of this. The consistent truth of all of this, of all these kids, all the kids I grew up with, is that we were just blatantly unparented. There was just nobody around most of the time. To her understanding, I was a reincarnated Sea Org member. And so she continued to treat me like a Sea Org member. You understand? The expectation of of a whole track recall and all these abilities. I was supposed to figure out how to play the piano. For real. She expected this. And this was a failure on my part when I didn't.
It was very difficult to live with her, and I've still not spoke to her since I left. The last thing she said to me was, "Out of sight, out of mind."
This 9-year-old and 7-year-old with their little drawings for 25 cents was a bit of a distraction. My sister and I go out. No one's watching us. It was typical. You hear this a lot, I think, with people who grew up in Scientology. There's no supervision. My mom was doing her thing. She was having like flashbacks on the PRF. But my mom would feel so guilty because she already did. The last 2 years when she left Scientology before she died, that was a big thing. I'm so sorry. She was so sorry that she got us into Scientology. But
because of Scientology, she started coming to flag and doing her OT levels.
Oh,
and
wow.
She would be gone, 3-4 months at a time. incredible. I didn't know what was going on. And I didn't understand that at the time. I was just a kid.
Yeah.
Until I was having so many problems, you know, growing up in that city, that I ended up at Mace Kingsley.
Formal education is simply not something that is valued in Scientology. It is not considered important beyond just being literate enough to be able to read and understand Scientology itself. Part of this stems from Scientologists' belief that we are all immortal spiritual beings who've been around for trillions and trillions of years. We've lived so many lifetimes in so many galaxies and even different universes, that anything you could ever hope to achieve in this lifetime, or anything a conventionally thinking person could hope to achieve in this lifetime, to aspire to be, professionally speaking, a scientist, engineer, astronaut, CEO, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. A Scientologist would say, you've already been that before. Anything that could ever be in your head as a goal to accomplish this lifetime, a Scientologist would tell you, you've already done that 1 billion times before, there's no point doing it again. The only thing you've never accomplished, the only thing you've never even had an opportunity to accomplish in your entire trillions of years until this lifetime is Scientology.
So I would go to, of course, to a Scientology school. I went to Delphi first, and then I went to Lewis Carroll Academy. So at that time when I was doing my auditor training and my internship, I was going to Lewis Carroll during the day. And then I would go to Celebrity Center at night, and from 7 to 10 p.m. I would do my training. And also on the weekends, I would do all my auditor training. And then eventually I stopped school for like a year or two, so I could do like my internships and stuff like full time. Okay, so the prison is located in Taft, California, which is right next to Bakersfield. They had computers, and then you could sign up for actual college courses. So when you go to federal prison, if you don't have a high school diploma, they make you do your GED and they make you get one. So when I first went in, I was like, well, technically I graduated high school, but it was a Scientology school, so it's not an accredited school. So they were like, do you want to get your GED while you're here? I said, sure, I might as well. I have the time. So I got my GED while I was in prison.
Dude.
Yeah.
It's already better than the Sea Org.
It's already better than the Sea Org. I actually got a proper, real education.
The local high school into 10th grade, and the local high school in my area, first off, it's like a blue ribbon school. So it was super difficult. But also they were like, no, we don't know what this is. You got through 8th grade. You're going to have to redo 9th. My mom was like so proud. She's like, she's done so well. She should be in advanced English. Look at all the, I'm like, oh my gosh, what we thought was English in ability school and what was English in a regular school were two completely different things. Yet somehow she argued for me to be put into advanced English. It was like the worst mistake ever.
Wow.
We used to have to like clap for Elron at the end of a lesson. So the first time this happens, I'm sat there and I'm looking at everyone like, what is going on? And I don't clap, right? I'm from Manchester. I ain't doing it. Like, so I don't clap for him. And they're like, you know, what are you doing? I was like, well, you know, I'm not a Scientologist. Freedom of religion, no? Like, you know, I didn't realize it would get me in so much trouble. I think maybe like 2 or 3 people laughed at my situation. They also got in trouble. And I remember they sent us outside after school. They literally made us kneel on the ground. We had like little summer school dresses on. There was a big pile of like tiny little stones. We had to like scoop them up and then just move them to another pile, you know? So I was like, this hurts my knees. Like, what's the deal here? They're like, you know, do it faster and then you won't have to do it anymore. And we did like running laps and like cleaning and stuff, which I didn't do in any of my other schools. Got my parents either side of me and they're talking to me, who is a child, be like, yeah, so we really think you would, you know, benefit from this because obviously I'm an adult at 8 years old in a very small body. Like that's how they saw it. But, you know, the reg was just like, well, we're going to put you on it. That'll be £600. Yeah, I'm going to homeschool you. This is going to be great. They bought a sauna, which got put up in one of the rooms. literally we had basically like a Scientology room in our house.
I went to the original Mace Kingsley that was in Silver Lake, I want to say. There's now a Mace Kingsley Ranch, so not that. It was just kind of like, it wasn't a boarding school. It was just kind of a Scientology private school. The consensus amongst the mothers was that public school was literal hell, right? If you sent your child to public school, they were going to die and eyeballs are going to shoot out of their face and blood from every orifice. So you couldn't do that. The whole deal is, but these are the poor people, right? So they're scraping together whatever they can to pay this tuition, right? Then the money ran out and she couldn't afford to keep sending to Mace Kingsley. So now she was just not going to go to school at all. And that's what a lot of these kids did. A lot of the kids that I grew up around just didn't go to school. I, in my infinite retardation and wisdom or whatever it was, I protested. This is the one great big act of teenage rebellion I participated in, was to insist that I got to go to school.
And hanging out with Bruce, he ended up recruiting me to be his replacement so he could go into the Sea Org in Los Angeles, which bummed me out because he was like my friend. And so he ended up going into the Sea Org and I was to replace him. So I dropped out of school when I was 15 with my mom's blessing, because there's nothing more important than serving the church and serving L. Ron Hubbard.
They said, you know, we have a perfect plan for you. You're going to, we're opening up a ranch and you're going to be the very first kid there.
Oh my God.
So I arrived at the Wally Hanks Palmdale Ranch, and I was the very first kid there.
And Palmdale's in California.
Yes.
Okay. God, it's funny. I always thought that video of, or that recording of you and Wally, I always thought that was in New Mexico, but that's Palmdale.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the very first start of the ranch. I was the very first kid there. No, this was a ranch that I could destimulate from the environment, and I can, you know.
That would imply though that you needed to
destimulate, right? And then that way I could you know, get audited there, and I could, you know, go up the bridge once I was done doing what I was going to do there.
Right. So it was a ranch for bad Scientology kids right from the beginning.
It was for rebellious kids. Yes.
Rebellious
right.
kids. Yes.
It wasn't necessarily for bad kids. It was
insubordinate.
Right.
And churlish.
Right. Right. And then more kids, and then they brought the girls in. And that's when the problems started to happen. You know, they mixed the boys with the girls, and they were drinking. The staff members were drinking.
The staff members were drinking.
Yeah, and they were also making it available for us kids to drink.
Wow.
And then Debbie, Mace, and Carol Kingsley were in the background. They were collecting. My mother, I think, was paying $2,000 a week.
$2,000 a week
for me to be there and get beaten and, you know, do nothing.
Wow.
That was progressive in any way.
Most of my viewers by this point know what the Cadet Org is, but I always like to assume that people watching this video have literally never seen anything we've ever done before. So
yeah, that's awesome.
For those who might be freshly tuning in, a cadet, or the Cadet organization, is it was a place where children of Scientology's Sea organization members, the people who signed the billion-year contract, they wouldn't really be raised with their parents. They'd be shoved over into this organization composed of children and called cadets.
But when they got my book in their hand, these are cadets, and they read it, like their response to me was so amazing. They loved it so much and gave me so much validation. And that was great. And then to get it from people I don't even know, you know, people who are reading it, who are just interested about Scientology, who have been like, this really shows what it's like as a child growing up in Scientology, because I included all the hormones, the boys, like it's all out there. It's not just about Scientology and me it's like me growing up in Scientology. What is that like? And what is it like for a girl to maintain her sense of self? And how did I do it? And I did it by like being a bad cadet, basically, and just never following the rules.
For Scientology, they're willing to do whatever the fuck it takes to, in their world, they're clearing the planet. they're going to clear the planet when they've only, how many of them are there? 20,000 of them, and they make them think that they're actually going to clear the planet.
It's this hocus pocus thinking, this idea that we're just going to clear the planet tomorrow and everything will be fine. And that was sort of this sort of driving motivator of most of the people I knew growing up. Again, like I said, as a child, the notion of we were going to save humanity. We're going to clear the planet and save everybody. That fucking meant something to me, dude. And I'm offended now, as a grown person, how fucking sold into this thing. I thought I was part of something important. I thought I was part of something real.
But how did I make it to clear, right? It's fake, right? But so how do I make it there to clear? I came to realize after years of not finding a way for my father or family members or whatever to look outside the bubble, Aaron, that maybe I should just try to fool this thing.
The e-meter.
The whole thing. Just only the meter.
You mean fool the Scientology system?
The whole thing. The whole thing. Locationals, the assist, maybe if I do that, maybe I could tell him, like I did one day, like a man. It's like, by the way, I am not a clear dad. I made all that up.
Oh, so sort of in your mind,
I'm going to, to that part, but yeah, in my mind.
So you're thinking, okay, if I sort of fake my way through this and I achieve it, I can then go back to my dad and be like, it's all bullshit, Dad.
You got to understand. I don't know. What is it? Because this is very weird to be, sitting in front of everybody doing TRs for hours. That's Narconon. That's what I did. They sent me to Narconon and part of my life. It's shit.
Did you ever have to did you do any of those kids courses? Yes. I liked, in a way, improving communication skills was always something, even growing up, was kind of cool. But oh my gosh, I still, to this day, it's why I have a hard time meditating. When you're sitting and you're doing these TRs, which are I don't know how much to explain words or not while I'm telling this story, Aaron, what people know.
You can just briefly, TR, training routines at Scientology's communication drills.
Yeah, there's these communication drills that you do, and you start off sitting there with your, you got your hands on your lap and your feet are on the ground and you're right in front of someone else doing the same. And first you start off with your eyes closed, just being there comfortably in front of each other, but you can't fall asleep. It's fine, whatever. Then you have to do it eyes open. And doing that with your sibling, who maybe you're pissed off with. And my mom used it as a form of torture. When we misbehave or we fought, she made us do these training routines, and I freaking hated it.
Yeah.
I think once I even kicked over my sister's chair and flipped her over, to which I got a big flunk start. Ooh, it's even triggering now. And then you're going over and you're doing bull baiting, which is basically to flatten any buttons that you might have. And by doing it, the coach, the person, I'm the student, and the coach can say anything to me, just can't touch me. And knowing that, I'm going into the training program as a magistrate, I mean, it was just I had no idea about a lot of this sexual stuff. I was still a virgin. Remember, I had just kissed a boy and got sent out of the state. And remember, we're teenagers. So it's those formative years where you're figuring out who you are. You're figuring out, what your boundaries are. And you're in this situation where you're being trained to, in essence, tolerate the most disgusting, vile things being said to you and not react to it. At some point, if you have any bit of human decency in you, there is a point, and then that's where the mind control comes in, because you start developing a conscience or some empathy, and you immediately have to, get your TRs in, or just suck it back in and just snap out of it like that. The amount of compassion some of them have and show, and understanding. And that's something that I've aspired to and have worked at getting better at, because as a child in Scientology, that's drilled out of you. You're taught to not feel compassion. You're taught to not have empathy, especially in the Sea Org. And those are those formative years where you're learning these things. And when you're in the Sea organization at any time, but especially as a young person, you were drilled and taught to not have compassion, not have an understanding, and not have empathy. Because what if you had to investigate your best friend? What if you had to do an ethics handling on your spouse or someone you were close to? That's why they destroy relationships. And we're all stronger together, even though I think most of it, well, I can speak for myself. I'm just like figuring it out. And then you leave all of that and you're exposed to all kinds of different emotions. And there's some emotion in the Sea Org, but it is so severely penalized that you don't dare. You don't even want to let somebody know if you're sick because you're going to get in trouble. I knew a guy once who got mugged on Hollywood Boulevard. And you know what happened? He got COMEV'd, which is a committee of evidence, which is like this justice action taking on you that you pulled this in. They have a very
like
twisted
it's kind of like a court martial.
If you're getting that kind of attention, you did something to pull that in. You must have some responsibility in it because you're this immortal being, even though you're in this teenage body. There was a fair amount of that going on where it was, outright sexual harassment. But back then we didn't know what to call it. Just made us uncomfortable. But, depending on who's sexually harassing you, if you bring it up and there's somebody who is senior to you, especially, or somebody who, is in the good graces at that moment, then you're the one who's going to get in trouble, not him.
All her troubles that she would go through, because she dealt with a lot of abuse. Her mother working at OSA, she would go and tell her, "Hey, this happened." Yeah, stepmom.
Oh,
her stepmother.
Who's her stepmom?
Linda Sarkovich.
Linda Sarkovich, and she works in the Office of Special Affairs.
She does.
Okay.
She would go and tell her, "Mom, this happened to me," and she'd brush it off. So were her dad. What did you do to pull it in? Go do your conditions.
And what happened is what happened. And that's just how, unfortunately, things turned out. But who's responsible for this?
Right.
Someone had the audacity to say in front of me that Ellie pulled this in, which I, excuse my language, fucking lit into this person to the point where I probably have about 12 knowledge reports in my ethics folder still for being disrespectful to a Sea Org member, for swearing, curse, I lost it. And how could you say something like that? And just where's your soul?
Dude.
What?
I just did a fucking video, a little 15-minute video today, talking about this Danny Masterson thing and the culture of Scientology, of where anything that happens to you in Scientology is your fault. And I gave just a funny little example of if you were walking down the hallway of a Sea Org base and you came upon a closed door and the door flew open and hit you in the face and it was David Miscavige, he might say, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." But 30 minutes later, an ethics officer would be pulling you into an interview to find out what you did wrong to pull in getting hit in the face by David Miscavige with a door. And that sounds like a fine example. And here you are literally saying that a Sea Org member said that your mother-in-law, who was fucking murdered, pulled it in.
On their Scientology Facebook page, from their Scientology org in Mexico, I was looking through it, and they had a Down syndrome.
You're the one that sent me that recently.
They have a Down syndrome person finishing her Purif, and on the top of it, they're writing, "She's going up the bridge to total freedom." You mean total destruction? She's going up the bridge to total destruction.
The girl couldn't even have been 10 years old.
That's right.
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome.
They're putting her on the purification rundown, sitting in a sauna for 5 hours a day for a month or 3.
Right.
To get the toxins out of her body.
Right. Right.
I think to the casual viewer that it may not be totally evident what the problem is with Scientology getting their hooks on disabled children. But the truth is, for those who may not know, like if you're born disabled, Scientology's belief about that is that's because you were basically really evil in your past life and you caused yourself to be born with a disability so that it would be more difficult for you to do evil in this lifetime. And, you know, if you're born with a disability like that, your Scientology auditing is going to involve you having to recall and take responsibility for the bad things you did in your past life to explain why you were born into a disabled body this lifetime. So just the idea of them starting a young girl with Down syndrome on the bridge is horrifying.
It's horrifying that
Okay, so I raised my hand and said to Nathan, very innocently said, well, if we just get rid of psychiatry, what happens with all the psychotic people in the hospitals? Like, what's the plan to take care of these people?
What was the answer?
And Nathan, that's why I asked if you knew Nathan, really sat there for 30 seconds and had no idea how to answer me.
It's one of the biggest, I don't know if I want to call it a blind spot is what I'll call it. Yeah. On the one hand, Scientology says that psychiatry has never helped anyone, anywhere, anytime, for any reason, and they should all be closed down and thrown in jail. On the other hand, Scientology won't touch an insane person with a fucking 100-foot pole. But this example of people being denied an opportunity to get professional mental help is such a crystal clear example where beliefs lead to abuse. This is the exact way in which Scientology becomes dangerous.
Right.
Okay. When he started presenting some issues with his, mental health. Okay. What do? Scientology, they will send them to the free wings that's where you help the OT level people or higher level Scientologists, and that they turn his back on him, meaning they couldn't help him anymore because their technology, it doesn't really work.
So you're saying the people in Scientology knew he was a threat to himself.
Yes.
And they knew what would happen when they released him from their control.
Yes.
Right.
They throw him out of the ship, of course. Right. All I know is that they know he was suicidal. Right. Of course. And they didn't want anything to do with it.
Whitney Mills.
If you get sick of your head, unfortunately, and whoever's watching out there, Scientologist or not, if you get sick of your head, which most people do at some point at some level in their lives, they won't help you. They can't help you. They're not going to be liable for anything that you do in their hands, in their control.
And I'll take it one step further. They would rather have you dead than in the care of a mental health professional.
Well, there you go. That's a good comment. It's on my book. His wishes was not to kill himself. I'm so sorry for that.
Right.
He was sick. He was mentally ill.
Right. He wanted help. He wanted it from Scientology.
He wanted help. And I need you to know this, Dad. I just want you to, his whole idea was just to make me aware of this. Maybe because one day I would talk about it. Okay. Let's think positive here for a second. He wanted to give me the message that he got in trouble and there was nothing he can do to get out of himself. He got into a problem with Scientology and members, high profile people. And there was nothing he can do to get out of that problem. And I said to him, Dad, let me help you. Let me help you. Being the tough guy like I always been, let me try to help you. I'm going to help you with that the computer guy, Francisco. And he said, I can't. I'm unable to do that. You know that. You know that very clearly, especially that I cannot do that, Francisco.
Right? You're going to have to pay to meet Zeno and know about Zeno. You're going to have to pay a dear price for it. And if you want to go anywhere above that, like what they did to my girlfriend, Whitney Mills.
Whitney was your girlfriend?
For 8 years.
Wow. So at this time, when you start dating Whitney, is she a Scientologist?
No, she's completely no. And
Okay.
I don't bring up Scientology.
You're an ex-Scientologist.
Right.
She's never been in.
She's never been in.
And neither is anyone in her family.
No.
Okay.
So one of her friends joins somehow.
Okay.
And she always wanted some help because she had some issues. And she had issues that needed to be treated by a doctor.
Like physical or mental?
Hormonal issues. And at the time I was smoking weed. I was smoking weed. And she said, I don't want to be with somebody that smokes weed. She broke up with me. We went our separate ways. And because she had joined and she was in auditing and all that. And we weren't in touch. And all of a sudden I get a phone call that she had gone all the way up the bridge and did the superpower, but then went home and lit herself on fire and shot herself in the back of the head. And this is a beautiful soul. One of the nicest ladies I've ever met in my life. And they did the same to her as they did my mom's friend. They emptied her bank account. And then once they couldn't find any more, there was no more help for her. There was no more support for her.
I heard that not only was she all out of money, but deeply in debt for all the auditing that she got.
Because that's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they specialize in.
Basically what happened is my mother-in-law was brutally murdered by my brother-in-law. My mother-in-law, to kind of go back a little bit, was got involved in Scientology in the early 70s. She was a really wonderful human being, wonderful auditor. So they were, both as a family, were very active Scientologists. Jeremy was also born into Scientology. And I asked, how's Jeremy doing? And she's like, well, he's not doing so good. He was a bit of an odd duck, but was just a very sweet human being. He had just taken this very odd slide mentally.
Up until this point, nothing in his life had stood out as like there's something wrong with him.
Other than being a little odd, no. He was an active Scientologist. He was on course. He had actually joined staff for a little while and then went into the Sea Org. And we'll say about 6 or 7 months into this episode in his life, he stopped showering. He stopped taking care of himself. He stopped getting a haircut, started growing a beard, wasn't eating very well, was becoming a bit ornery or difficult to deal with. And, she was reaching out to me about like, well, what do I do about this? And
they say we don't see anything wrong with his brain, but do you recall if they diagnosed his behavior in any way?
No, they never diagnosed. I mean, this guy thought he was Jesus at one point. Again, ironically, March 13th, which is L. Ron Hubbard's birthday, I get a call from one of my parishioners. I'm not going to mention her name. She calls very hysterical and says that I need to go home. Something happened with Ellie. Jeremy did something to her. You need to get home right away. As I was pulling up, Jeremy was being led into to the back of a cop car and had blood all over him.
God damn.
Yeah.
I cannot believe I did not know this happened on March 13th, which
never brought up. It was never brought up in the press. It was obviously irrelevant to anyone in the press because they don't know what March 13th is. And obviously the church is not going to want to mention this because it's LRH's birthday. No, I was going to say, I remember standing on the stage with you at Flag and doing the auditor's code. But it's
I could give you the auditor's code. We can do it.
No.
But as far as this conversation about your brother-in-law, what did that have to do with it at the time?
Okay, so as an auditor, I promise as an auditor not to turn over anyone to psychiatry.
Right.
Or to psychiatric harm or something like that. I know it starts with I promise as an auditor. But yeah, I mean, that was her, that was what she was thinking of.
That's right.
And
she was a veteran, long-time auditor. That's right. You said.
Yeah.
someone who's going off of what she has been led to believe, not only about the subject of psychiatry, but about the value of this promise of eternal spiritual freedom that all Scientologists are hoping to hell they're eventually going to attain, or at least feel like they have attained. You know, you'd have to, I'd love to sit someone down who's an OT5 and say, tell me in what ways you have attained eternal spiritual freedom. Okay. Tell me what additional ways you are still hoping to attain eternal spiritual freedom. Because there's no fucking difference between OT5 and OT7 and OT8. It's all the same.
Yeah.
So when did you first find out about Xenu and the body Thetans, and what did you think about that?
You know, it took me up until a couple of years ago to get the cojones to watch that South Park episode. I was so scared of that. Like, I'd heard about it. I'm like, some other time. When I finally found out about it, I remember being like, Dad, you
wait. So that whole time you never even asked your dad about it?
Mm-mm. No, until we were deprogramming ourselves, and then I found out. I'm like, Dad, what? Why didn't you pull us out then?
Did you feel deceived when you finally found out that the OT levels was about telepathically talking to sick body? Like, were you like,
yes,
I've been being lied to my whole life about these fucking levels?
Yes.
For me, like, the whole thing that was keeping me in the bubble mentally of Scientology was the belief in the state of full OT, the belief that LRH had achieved it, and the belief that the upper OT levels existed it, because I never met an OT8 that I was like, I'd like to be more like that person. Like, I never met an OT8 that impressed me. Now, I had met Sea Org members who impressed me,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't care where they were at on the bridge.
Right.
All the public I'd met who were OT8, I was like, there's no part of that person that I would aspire to be like, right? And so when I found out there was no freaking, not only I found out how ridiculous the OT levels are, but that there were no upper OT levels, it was pretty easy for me to be like, oh, for real? You should have told me that 20 years ago. I'm out. Like, it wasn't a big emotional deal. I was flabbergasted, but it wasn't like a big emotional deal for me. What was your take on it?
The OT levels, I kind of feel the same, like about public Scientologists that were OT8. Scared the shit out of me, most of them. Like, there was.
Yeah, for me, the deceit was thinking that I've always been led to believe that people who'd done these OT levels somehow had greater insight, greater intuition, greater ability, basically magical powers, were somehow smarter. And then I found out, so you've been pretending to telepathically talk to entities for the last 10 years? Like, you're lucky you're not in a fucking loony bin.
Yeah.
Like, you think, but here's the thing, they would act like they were special.
Absolutely.
Like, how dare you think you're special because you've been telepathically talking to beings? Like, what?
So when my dad's wife died and the little gray appeared, my aunt and cousin went to his house in Vegas, threw everything away of my dad's wife. She just passed away, just dropped the body last week. They threw away everything. Every picture of her, all her clothing, all her belongings, everything. They didn't even tell her family she was dead. And her family were not Scientologists. They lived in Vermont. It was really ugly. It was really horrible the way they dealt with Shirley. I really can't. It was horrible.
Why did they do that?
Because, once she's dead, you've got to get rid of everything. She's not here anymore. It doesn't matter. She's gone now. She's dropped the body. So they were so cold about each other. My cousin got rid of everything that belonged to my dad's wife. And on the way to the Shirley was cremated, and on the way to the airport, my cousin realized, oh, I have to get rid of Shirley's ashes. And she just tossed them out the window of a cab.
No.
On the way to the airport.
Her 40-year-old OT friend all of a sudden is dying from cancer. And she loved her, Gabriela Davila. And what do? They pull her into the sandcastle. She has a beautiful home in Coachman. They pull her into the sandcastle so she could pay for the hotel there. They tell her that they're going to help her with the cancer. There was a video of Hai Libby or something like that was his name. Yes, and he felt so bad of what he did, and I was watching this go down. My mother was too. They actually were regging her while they knew she was in her deathbed. She had stage 4 cancer, and I was watching this. I was helping.
That story that Hai told was about her?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So they were regging her as much as they could
before she died.
Before she died.
Yeah.
Before she died. And I watched this and I said, this is bullshit. This is not right. Right then and there is when I decided I was young. It's like this. And then my mom's next friend, Bernardo Lan, which helped Hai Libby reg people to go up the bridge. He got cancer and he died.
Oh my goodness.
And the way they treated him and everything around him. And then his wife got cancer and died. And the way they treated her and everybody else was just, to me, it was like in front of my face.
Yeah.
You couldn't hide that these people were hounding for money. You know, you couldn't hide that these people were hounding and that the only thing that they were interested in was their money, not the people, but the money.
Yeah. Did you ever know Morton Astrop?
No.
He was like, you know, High Levy was a reg for Flag.
Right.
Morton was a reg for the ship.
Okay.
And long time Sea Org member. And his wife Liz ran Bridge Publications. Anyway, he drops dead of a heart attack. The Free Winds puts out a little in memoriam, says, you know, let's give him one last highest ever. Instead of sending flowers, send money.
Wow.
And don't send it to the family. Send it to the ship.
Wow.
So that Morton can have one last week of highest ever gross income.
Wow.
I'm like, well, you should tell your mom that, you know, it's okay for her to drop her body because it's so bad when you go see her. Because, you know, I don't know, people are, you know, they're doing so much and she's just, it's time, you know, like her body, just make sure she knows that it's okay to drop her body. And she was like unrecognizable.
How long had it been since you'd seen her last?
Probably about 5 months at that point.
That's it?
I begrudgingly kind of did what they had asked. But I was going to do it on my terms. And my terms were that I was going to tell her that I'm going to leave the Sea Org to help with my dad and my brothers. And like the relief that came over her face when I was like, yeah, this is happening. You know, I'll take care of it. She's like, your dad, my youngest brother was 6 at the time. My dad was basically just working and paying the bills. Like my mom had been doing the parenting. Granted, while she was sick, they had some help, but still, like, and she was so relieved. She was like, you know, she had been holding on, literally holding on, just to see me and also to like get some sort of okay, that it was okay, that her family was going to be okay after she passed.
Maybe I've got a recency bias just because I wasn't around in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but it seems like this generation of second gen mostly ex-cadets, ex-SO kids between 45 and 55 who Scientology's got an awful lot to worry about, because I feel like it is that generation where like, I think 80% of them are under the radar. Like 80% of them that Scientology thinks are like in good standing are like, yeah, they're in good standing in your computers.
Right.
They're not in good standing in any other way.
No.
Just wait.
It's what they would call a dilettante, somebody that's not going up the bridge.
Right.
They're all not going up the bridge. They're just hanging around because they don't want to disconnect from their friends, their jobs.
Yeah.
Their existence is all surrounded by Scientology.
Yeah.
And if they were to say anything, they lose everything. They lose their friends, they lose their jobs, they lose their well-being, you know. So they have them all they have them all like trapped.
My father struggled all his life when I said to him, this is not for him, to maintain a relationship with somebody that did not approve Scientology. And I wasn't vocal about it. Why would I be vocal? He will kick me out. He would never speak to me again. There's a disconnection policy. I always knew. I have a chapter called A Noble Lie, where I explain that I had to keep a lie. I just keep withholding that my real things until now. And why? Because selfishness of mine, I don't want it to lose that dad. Okay.
Any person who seeks to suppress Scientology or Scientologists by an action such as reporting it to civil authorities for criminal or fraudulent activities is committing a suppressive act.
They said, so, like, have you met an SP? I looked at them, you know, and I thought, what a beautiful thing, because maybe one day it'll be like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe one day it will be that. Wow, SPs, like, they'll just read about those in the history books, you know?
When I was a kid, that was scary. The idea of being a suppress, it wasn't just you talk shit about the church. The idea of an SP, the 2%er, that you're spiritually different than the rest of us. There's something wrong with your core being beyond whatever, this lifetime or whatever. No. It's so much deeper than that. And they want to just say you're an SP or Leah Remini's an SP because what? We complained? Look, your institution failed. It failed a shit ton of people. And we're allowed to be angry about that. And we're allowed to bitch about it.
Once you put a label on someone, that's what they are. That's all of them. That's the totality of them.
Ironically, this is one of the things L. Ron Hubbard complained about psychiatry, is that psychiatry supposedly labels people and keeps them being that way forever. Yeah.
Or is that just what it felt like they were saying?
So they told my parents that I was the suppressive person, and then they told me what that was. And I was like, wow, okay.
Oh my God.
Oh, if I could show that I was being good and trying to, clean everything, be a good child, then, maybe I would get away with not being called evil SP, trying to ruin everyone's life.
With the acceptance, convincing Osa and all those people at the Scientology that his oldest son was not a suppressive person like they were trying to claim. They wanted to get rid of me. Scientology had to try to get rid of me in the eyes of my father all his life. Francisco. That's the biggest problem you have, Frank. And that's what they sold him on. And he believed it.
It clicked in my brain because when I used to work there, they had this binder that was full of SPs.
They really did?
Yes, they did. And the thing is, only staff members that worked in Div 6A would know this, or HCO. So it's hard to back that up. And it was just these candid photos of random people. And some of them looked like they were drinking coffee or something, or some of them were from a Facebook. And I was just they're security would come and they'd be if these people, enter the building, you need to alert security. And I was okay. And I'm a 16-year-old girl. So I'm just okay, cool, whatever. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then so when I saw that episode, and then obviously watching your videos and other people on YouTube, I was like, holy shit, like that was literally from private investigators sending those pictures to the org.
Reached out to my mom, sent her, a text message from somebody else's phone, so she didn't have my number, in January of 2019, just being like, hey, I'm alive, I'm doing well, I just wanted you to know, like, I miss you. And she was basically like, why are you texting me? And I was like, well, you're my mom and I love you and I miss you and like I want to have you in my life. And she was like, well, then come back and route out properly. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a Scientologist anymore, but I respect your religion. I'm not going to talk smack about your religion and like I'll toe the line and whatever, but I'm not going to come back and route out. And she was like, then you don't have a mom anymore.
Other people don't have contact with their parents, with their own children. And that is like, I think the part where I'm like, okay, I want to talk about this and I want to share about it and I want to hear other people's stories about it because it does help me process it.
She called him up and told him some truths about her upbringing that she wasn't happy about and about her brother, that he was in trouble. And her dad just blew up. He told her to fuck off and never called her again. It's been 6 years.
Even though she's not declared.
She's not declared.
He just didn't like the stuff.
He didn't like the truth being told to him.
So that 7-year disconnection comes from the fact that I probably made a mistake and mistaken their heads, right? That one day I mentioned to somebody, one person, or stay away from Scientology. Don't go there. I said it that way. That's exactly how I said it. I said, do not go there. And I warned them, that might not be the best thing for you. Just like that. It happened to be that they knew one of my siblings. And that made it to Dad. And he called me while I was on a Home Depot. I'm like, what? 28, 29 years old. He called me to tell me, I can have to disconnect from you. That's a formal process of disconnection, right? I'm just calling you. He called me from Flag, 100% sure. He called me from the process center because it's all very scripted. He's reading a paper for sure. And I know what's happening when he called me. I was expecting that call.
Brutal. Why am I doing this to myself? I fought tooth and nail to not get declared because of all my childhood friends that I was like, oh, but I've got to hold on to my childhood. So my father had floated around the idea of like, well, your mom had $50,000 on account at Flag, and I'd really love to get that money back. We could certainly use it. And I remember just being like, yes, but no, what's going to happen when that happens? We're going to get declared. Like, please don't do this to me. And after like 2007, 2008, various things in life happening, it was kind of like, all right, fine, let the gauntlet drop. Fine. Of course, we never got that money, but the declares came out around 2009. So
he was inspiration again regarding my parents. He's like, you don't have to give up. Like, if you give up, it makes it okay for them. You know what I mean? Because I did try to reach out at the beginning 6 years ago when they stopped talking to me. And I was like, you know what? And I have an email that I read recently. So me and my friends, Amy, Clarissa, and Felicia, they won't mind if I say their names because they're on my Bad Cadet Instagram page. But we had like a little moment where we read our last emails from our parents where they disconnected from us. Yes. Oh my gosh. And we were just like crying, but it was like a helpful cry, if that makes sense. It's like a support group.
The fact that Scientology will come out and say there's no such thing as enforced disconnection as you're characterizing it. And it's like, well, how would you characterize it? Your brother is not a declared suppressive person. Mm-hmm. He's not in bad standing officially with the Church of Scientology.
He's never talked out on Scientology. I had never done it and they'd already disconnected me. And then because my best friend was on a show, whatever, because I knew about it and I didn't tell them. I didn't report her. Why would I ever report her? But then they also equated it with Jason. That's not his best. It all doesn't make sense, right? It's like, but that's how they work. That's how they operate. And it's just, it's not okay, obviously.
Why is Scientology publicly pretending or acting like it welcomes gay people in Scientology when Scientology is notoriously anti-gay? What they really mean is gay money is just as good as straight money. And Scientologists do believe that being gay is a non-optimum aberrated behavior that is rooted in engrams. Hubbard says people who are gay are at 1.1 on the emotional tone scale. And here Hubbard says that people who are at 1.1 on the emotional tone scale are the most dangerous, poisonous, evil people in society, and they should all be rounded up and shipped to an island and blown up. I'm only taking some slight liberty in how I'm paraphrasing Hubbard's words. That is essentially what he has said. And someone will not be allowed to progress up Scientology's auditing levels, up to the highest levels, if someone won't stop being gay. And what that means is Scientology is willing to ignore the fact that someone has gay feelings or gay urges or gay thoughts or whatever, as long as they aren't acting on them.
One person could be gay and not want to be gay anymore. And that's like the thing in your head that you want to handle. So one of the big things that I was like, okay, well, I didn't become ungay when I was clear. So maybe maybe there's a body Thetan that's gay. Maybe I just have to find that one body Thetan, get rid of him, and then I won't be gay anymore. When I first joined the Sea Org, they make you fill out that life history, but they want to know every single thing about you, and they give you a meter check. He was like, "Is there anything else that you haven't done? Like, have you done any gay stuff? Like, have you practiced homosexuality?" And I was like, "No, I honestly hadn't. Like, I was set on going up the bridge, and I wasn't going to do anything else. I wasn't even going to think about that." But then, of course, as soon as I finished OT3 and then I was in the Sea Org, those feelings started creeping back really, really, really quickly. The one thing that OT3 did do is it completely distracted me from all that other sex stuff.
Because I was going to ask you, how did you get allowed onto the OT levels with people knowing you were gay but just weren't being gay, like that kind of weird stuff? How did that happen?
At that time, I didn't think I was gay anymore. I thought that I had gotten so much auditing and that I honestly convinced myself that I had handled that part of my thing, because they teach you that being gay is a complete aberration. They pushed me hard enough and they just completely convinced me that I was a horrible human being and called me all kinds of crazy, disgusting things and told me I was, anyway. So yeah, so I basically convinced myself that I wasn't. Like after I finished OT3, you get caught up in like the wind of everything, and I was a Sea Org member, and like everybody was clapping for me, and like you're a wonderful Sea Org member, and you're going to do so much good for this planet. And it didn't really get handled, but it's okay. I'll handle on OT4 and 5. I'll handle on the next OT level. I was a little bit embarrassed about it. I mean, I got in serious ethics trouble for it. I got locked in a room on the 7th floor of main building with no windows, and a security guard put his bed in front of the door at night when I was sleeping, and I was under watch 24/7 so that I couldn't leave in the middle of the night. The only time I was allowed to leave the room was to go across the street to AO to get my auditing. And that I was in that room for about 2 months total, I think.
Marianne, it was great chatting with you the other day. I didn't realize you were Joey's mom. Joey's is a friend of mine because I was born and raised in Scientology too, so me and Joey have a lot in common. Mostly, we both know what it's like to have our Scientologist family disconnect from us, even though it was a good relationship. Are you going to try to record me?
911.
I'm sure you didn't want to disconnect from your son, but that's what happens when you're in a cult. Haven't you done the OT levels? Haven't you done enough Scientology to know that body Thetans and BTs and clusters aren't worth throwing away your son for? I want you guys to hear this. There's already a police officer inside, Marianne. We can go in and talk to him together. Do you want me to get your son on the phone so that you can speak to him? She disconnected from her son. Growing Up in Scientology is the name of my channel. Marianne Chait is a high-level Scientologist who disconnected from her son because of L. Ron Hubbard.
He's like 35, 40.
I'm 44 years old, but because I left Scientology, I look very youthful and attractive. She said I look 35. Come and get your girl. I tried to reconnect her with her son, Joey. Marianne Chait, your son Joey says hi. I hope you can reconnect with him before you die and it's too late.
Like they spent like legit 5 days straight, like literally day and night, like till fucking like 1 a.m. some nights, like recruiting me. So they basically trained me to call my mom and to tell her what to say to get me to join. And at this point, I started getting cold feet. I was just like, I signed, this is after I signed the billion-year contract, right? In the heat of the moment, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. And for 3 days straight, they had me call my mom like 20 times a day, like asking her, like, can you sign this? Because they needed her signature to get me to join the Sea Org, because they would not be able to get me started on the EPF without her signature since I was a minor.
Born into the Sea Org, how did that work? Because you yourself didn't really join the Sea Org. What happened there?
Well, I was harassed into it when I was like 12. Like everybody in the neighborhood, every Scientology kid in the neighborhood was.
Two choices. I wasn't going back to high school. I could either join the Sea Org in New York at CLO East US, or I could go to the ranch.
Which ranch? Mace Kingsley?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. There was another. Was that There's another ranch as well. Okay, but anyway, if Mace Kingsley was the one, then that was
the one in that. I think it was in New Mexico at the time, New Mexico or somewhere around that area. But it was like those were my options.
I had been being told that if I didn't join the Sea Org, I was going to be out on the street, being hounded by a recruiter. His name was Daniel Michelli, and he was recruiting for what was known as it was basically the Data Bureau, which was, he was recruiting kids to do the work of scanning all of this data into the computers and getting it, making it available on the computer.
My daughter, the one that Scientology wanted me to abort, had turned 14. Sea Org recruiter comes to town. This is a Scientology parent's worst nightmare, at least if you've been in the Sea Org at this point. And they recruit my daughter. And at this point, it's very much expected of me that I'm going to back this up. And what do? If I don't back it up, I get in trouble. I get declared, I lose everybody. If I let it happen, I'm letting my daughter go into the same situation that I was in. And so I talked to the recruiter, who was Brittany, maybe you know her.
Brittany Garrett.
Yes.
Brittany Ruiz now.
Yes. And Brittany lied her ass off and told me how it's completely different. The kids go to school. You know, if you're on the Estates Project Force and you're underage, you need to be in school. You're going to go to school.
What year was this?
Let's see. Shelby would have been 14. So it was, let's see. She was born in 90. So what is that? 2004?
2004.
Brittany told me if she changed her mind on the Estates Project Force, that it would just be really quick and easy. It's been streamlined and she would be allowed to come home. That was a bunch of complete and utter bullshit. So she calls me, she's my daughter, she's upset. And I'm like, okay, do this. Tell them this. They'll put you on the routing form. I still believed the stuff that they would tell me at this point. I don't know. It's just beyond me, but I did. I believed her. I think Scientologists can be very convincing at times. Oh, you're going to love this then. So I get him on the phone. I'm in Minnesota. He starts yelling at me. You don't have any rights. She is a Sea Org member. You are a Sea Org member. I'm like, I'm not in the Sea Org anymore. And then he's like, once you're a Sea Org member, you're always a Sea Org member. And I'm just like, whatever. And I'm like, okay, look, you need to put her on the routing form. She doesn't want to be there. She wants to come home. She's 14 years old. She's a minor and she's not in school. And he's like, I don't know who you think you are. You don't have any rights here. I'm like, I am her mother and I have every legal right to go pick her up right now and yank her right out of there. And there's nothing you can do about it. I said, that is the law. And he says to me, the Sea Org doesn't need to follow WOG law. No. He said the Sea Org is above WOG law. And I was like, I just said, you know what? I will see you tomorrow. She, she was trying to handle me. And again, like when you've been raised in Scientology and you've been in the Sea Org, you know exactly what they're going to do. So, I play along and I just try to be my diplomatic self. I'm just my daughter doesn't want to be here. I just kept sticking to that. not all the other stuff, because I knew if I did that, then this would become a bigger situation than it needed to be. And I was just trying to get my daughter and not get declared, because I was trying to not lose my entire family and life in that moment. Because this was before I had decided, I really decided I wanted to leave. So she becomes my handler. She gets my daughter, and somebody else. It really opened my eyes that it didn't change. So remember, this is the same child who they wanted me to abort. They wanted to take her from me then. Then they tried to take her from me when she was 14. And I'm just like, man, what am I going to do? Like I was living with them. Then I had someplace to live. When I was on staff, when I went back, I was like just couch surfing. I was 16, supporting myself, doing odd jobs, and then, working at the org some. So I decided, you know what? Forget this. I'm going to LA. By then my mom was there. She went from Florida to LA, and my sister was there in the Sea Org. I'm like, I'm just going to join the Sea Org. Nowhere else to go. So why not?
Honestly, it was kind of a nice break from all this studying to do all that working. We're working in the laundry rooms in the hotels. We're working in construction. We're moving rooms, HVAC. Anyway, it was child labor, but from our perspective, it was kind of fun. Wow.
The irony is I fought to leave the Sea Org, yet I fought so hard to get in. So I'm working in the dining room, and I start getting these really bad cramps, and I'm thinking, well, it must be my period, and except it's so heavy, like I'm majorly bleeding and I don't know what's going on. And I go downstairs to see George. I go down to George and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I can't be in the dining room right now. Like I am bleeding heavily. And I went into the bathroom that was downstairs by the galley where the kitchen was. And I was having a miscarriage. And I didn't know. I didn't even know that I was pregnant. And this was after the rule came out that if you get pregnant, you need to go to a failing organization, or they coerce you into having an abortion. So I'm having this miscarriage, which I'm not even sure what it is. I'm in just tremendous pain. The only doctor that we're allowed to go to was, when he was alive back then, was Dr. Dank, who was L. Ron Hubbard's doctor. And he was down at the whatever clinic it was, a mile or two down the road.
Shaw? Was it Shaw?
Shaw Health Center. So George tells me I need to, I should go there. I think he knew what was happening. I didn't even know, because I was feral. No one ever sat me down and was like, obviously I knew how babies were made, but I didn't understand a lot of the mechanics, or even that this was a miscarriage. I didn't know that that's what was happening. I just knew I was in a tremendous amount of pain and had heavy bleeding. So I walk to Shaw Health Center while having a miscarriage. It was a mile or two down the road. And I go see Dr. Dank, and he explains to me what's happening. And then he puts me on birth control. And it was birth control pills. And fortunately, I didn't get any kind of trouble for that, for having been pregnant, because I didn't know I was pregnant. And I didn't know a lot about birth control. I didn't know at that time. And by then I'm 17. I got married when I was 17. So this might've happened right before I turned 18. I still didn't quite understand timing and when you could get pregnant and all that. And I wasn't on any birth control. So they put me on birth control pills. If it weren't for my friends outside of Scientology, and I don't know how many times I would just blurt something out that happened, not thinking it was even that bad. And the reaction was like, what? And now people close to me know me enough to say, that was wrong now, right? And I'm like, yeah, now I do. But I didn't know. I didn't know that abuse wasn't a word that we used.
When I first joined the Sea Org, I did my EPF, which is the Estates Project Force. That's the first thing that you do to train you to become a Sea Org member. It took me like a week because I'm a very fast student, I guess. The first day that I actually was in the Sea Org, I went to my first staff meeting on Thursday night, and I saw the captain of AOLA, who at the time was Stephanie Carey, slapping really, really hard across the face the senior MAA at AO at the time. I forget her name. She's not in the Sea Org anymore. They got into an argument and I was walking down the hall. Stephanie Carey just slapped her really, 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 really hard. That was my first real experience of witnessing violence when I was in the Sea Org. One guy, and they were doing some sort of an all hands thing, and like they needed all these Sea Org members to stay up way late into the wee hours of the morning to try to get something done. And this elderly Sea Org member who was in his 70s said, "No, I'm old. I'm going to bed." You know, he's on an exact sleep schedule. And the younger guy punched the 72 or 73-year-old man in the face.
He was closing out intensives.
He was closing out intensive to try to get his statistics up. A lot of Sea Org members did that because the pressure to keep your statistics up is so high. You will lie, cheat, and steal to do whatever you possibly can to keep your stats up. Otherwise, you get creamed. So one time at staff meeting, he was wearing like an old battered t-shirt and like pants with holes in them. He obviously got busted for it. So the person who was the RTC rep at the time, I forget his name, he had him by the collar and like dragged him in front of the entire staff of AOLA and made him confess his crimes in front of the entire crew. And I felt so terrible for him, but it's like they humiliated him. And yes, he did something wrong because he was under so much pressure to keep his stats up. And stuff like that happened all the time. So like that accumulation of like all those little things.
And I'm 15. I get to the base. It's late. I get taken up to my room. And so far, I'm still kind of like a little bit excited. Like this is going to be like a college experience. It was not. I go into the berthing, into the dorm, and it's late. And someone just points up to where my bed is, of which I have to look up like 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed. And I was mortified. It was gross. It was dirty. There was no bedding. I think maybe there was a blanket. I'm looking around counting. All these women are sleeping and snoring and it stinks. And there's minimum. I always thought in my head there's like 15 of them, but no, there had to have been more because there were probably 6 or 8 of these bunk beds, 3 high. And these are Sea Org members at that. I don't know how they do it now, but at that time, if you went for training in Los Angeles, you were put into the same berthing of where the Sea Org members are. There's one bathroom. And again, there's like 15, 20 women. There was another bathroom and shower if you went to the main building, there were showers in there. So we would go there. I just cry in that bunk bed that night. Cause I'm like, this is not at all what I expected, what I was led to believe it would be. You know, it was just gross, nasty, and disgusting. And I was super lonely. And I wasn't even there 24 hours yet.
Yeah, it was summer. There's no central air conditioning, as most people that have been in the Sea Org know very well. It's a 7-story building, and the berthings on for regular folks, not CMO, is 5 and 6. It gets hot in the summer.
It has got to be the worst Sea Org berthing in the world.
It was really bad. It was that was the biggest culture shock because like, it's not like we were rich, but we weren't poor either. So like I had a nice bed, like where I came from. I had a nice pillow, nice sheets. Like you get thrown in and you're like, here's this 100-year-old mattress in bunks and this piece of, paper for a pillow. And like it's old, they had these, quilts, these Sea Org quilts. They were like navy blue. They were also just like paper thin with the Sea Org emblem on it. So we all had those. I cried myself to sleep. I don't even know how many times while I was in there. As much sleep as you could get in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, where the garbage trucks are going all through the night, people screaming. And, we had to leave the window open for ventilation. It was combined with like barely able to sleep, crying myself to sleep.
I thought that the condition of things was a direct reflection of the lack of money that it took a lot of money to keep the organization going, that it took a lot of money to fight legal battles, that it took a lot of money for promotion and marketing. And it is the fact that our lived experience was that of essentially destitution.
Mm-hmm.
That when I found out in 2009, once, Debbie Cook and all the other, once the Tampa Bay Times started publishing interviews with all these executives, and it became apparent that Scientology had over $1 billion cash in the bank, I was fucking furious. Scientology is somewhat of a chameleon organization in that it will present itself to be whatever it believes you want it to be in order for it to be acceptable to you. One of the things that differentiates Scientology from other real religions is that Scientology will actively lie about its core beliefs. For example, Scientology would have Christians believe that you can be a Christian and a Scientologist at the same time, or that Scientology's beliefs are somehow in alignment with the beliefs of Christianity or Christ. Well, I'm not an expert in Christianity, but I don't personally know of any Christian churches that has a weekly shuttle to take its clergy members to the abortion clinic. That's just one small example.
And mind you, this was when I was 16 going on 17 when we got married.
How old was he?
He was the same age. He was about a year older. We were both teenagers. I ended up getting pregnant, and I was coerced into having an abortion, basically. My husband at that time really wanted to have kids. We had the whole dream of, having the house with the white picket fence and having kids. That's really what we wanted, both of us. So for him to agree to have that happen and for me to have it was disastrous. It tore apart our marriage.
Basically, the coercion for the abortion starts.
Yeah.
And they know that they have a short window to convince you to do this. And what really stuck in my mind is how young these girls were. I remember thinking, like, you're sitting here pressuring me to convince me that the best thing for me, not the best thing for me, the best thing for the organization, thereby me, is to abort this child. And I'm sitting there wondering, like, have you even had a period yet? Like, you have no idea. I'm newly pregnant, but I've got the hormones going, but I'm still a kid myself. I'm only like 18, 19 years old. And I push back and I push back and I push back. And one thing, it's like, even when I would be being screamed at and all that, I just always kind of kept my cool about it, because I just thought, and I was right. Later on, I learned that this is true. If you're getting this force and this anger coming at you and you meet it with anger, you got lots of anger zooming around and it builds up into this thing. But if there's nothing that's coming back from you, what's going to happen? It could just dissipate. Not only that, I'm like, you train me. This is an organization that indoctrinated me from the time I was 8 years old and trained me to be able to not react when I didn't need to. You trained me so that I wouldn't be intimidated. You trained me so that I would hold my ground and back up LRH policy and defend the Sea Org whenever was necessary. That training also comes in handy when somebody's being, just super aggressive and screaming at you and all that. My daughter, when I was pregnant with her, I was still on post and I was told to hide the pregnancy. And I remember when I was very pregnant, like there was no hiding it anymore. I was in the bathroom, ran into her. I come out of the bathroom. I'm massively pregnant. And she looks at me up and down and she says, "How can you do that?" Oh. And I was just, Lord, because here's someone who also, she would do media for Scientology.
Also, Kay had her own kids.
Yeah. So that just destroys me in that moment. Because here's this woman too, who I respected, who I looked up to, who, was doing media and things for the church. I thought, all the things they go out and say about we're non-denominational and all this stuff. It just destroyed me in that moment. I was so obviously pregnant. They didn't want me walking around the base. So I'm assuming that Kay said something, and because I was so pregnant, because in the Sea organization, I don't know if you know this, but pregnancy is contagious. If you see a pregnant woman, it might make you pregnant. If you talk
It's funny
to a
though,
pregnant
because
woman,
in a way, it kind of is though, right? Because they don't want the idea spreading. I
No.
could get pregnant too.
and then from there, you know, we were out. There were some harassment, especially when I would talk about it, because I did do a story with the Tampa Bay Times about coerced abortion back in, I think, 2010. Actually, Shelby did it with me. That was a trip. My daughter, we went to Florida. We were
Ooh,
contacted.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is some Inception level stuff right there.
I was going to leave quietly. I just wanted to get on with my life. But I had it with this coming at my family thing. So even when I had my family together, I didn't want to stop there. Hearing somebody else's, you know, pain like that is just watching your child. I'm not even going to try and fight it. I'm just going to cry. It's probably what gets most of us out. When people ask, how did you finally leave? What was the thing that finally happened? And for both of us, it's our children. Something happens. They either try to take your child or hurt your child. But when you see, it's like even going through it, and I knew what she was going through was very different from watching this video. I wasn't in the room when she gave her interview. They asked us, and I'm like, no.
I went to the medical officer. I took a pregnancy test. I was like, I don't know how this happened. I'm on the pill, but whatever, like lack of food, lack of sleep, all that stuff definitely affects it. And also, being on a wacky schedule, you're supposed to take the pill at the same time every day. It's not like super possible, right? So I went, did the thing, towed the line, didn't cause a fuss immediately, didn't even tell my husband. Him was that he really badly wanted kids, and I didn't want to cause him unnecessary pain when I knew that there wasn't another option. Got my schmishmortion.
Right.
So then I had to do lower conditions for the horrible, audacious offense of getting accidentally pregnant.
Oh, you were in trouble for doing something that might have taken you out of the Sea Org.
And specifically, and also taken my husband out of the Sea Org. It gets worse.
Oh my God. Tell me what's next.
And then I purposefully stopped taking my birth control. I keep it quiet as long as I can. I am, as it has been established, a very bad liar and cannot keep a secret. And I had horrendous morning sickness. Really, I couldn't keep anything down. I was sick. And so I finally had to fess up. And I was like, okay, I don't know how this happened again. I'm really sorry. I promise, I'll whatever. I'll toe the line and I'll go get another thing. And so I went and they gave me the pill and I threw the pill away. After a couple weeks, they sent me to the doctor again, and the doctor was like, "You're pregnant still." And I was like, "Oops, guess the pill didn't work." Still, didn't tell my husband any of this because I didn't need him snitching on me, basically.
But when you say he would have told not hey, tell them so we can get out of here, but told them so they could handle you to get it taken care of.
Correct. I'm keeping it then because obviously it doesn't want to go anywhere. And at that point, they were like, no. They took him out of my room, put him in the general men's dorm, kept me in my room alone without him, fully isolated me, took me off post, changed my meal times so I wasn't with anybody. I was eating with the RPF during the RPF meal times. Put me on so they fully isolated me, put me into sec checking, put me into 5 hours a day sec checking, and then the rest of the time just isolated. And then while I was isolated, they would have people come periodically, my friends or my coworkers or whatever would come to love bomb me and try to handle me to stay and try to convince me to stay. Wow. And so this went on for a couple weeks. I think I made it all the way to 13 or 14 weeks along before I finally caved. Anyway, she was the one who finally like convinced me. And basically the way she convinced me was by giving me the whole spiel about how like Thetans don't reproduce and like giving examples of other Sea Org members who had left to have babies and how they like regretted it afterwards. And then the EPFIC took me aside and said, you're not allowed to graduate until you convince your husband to get a vasectomy. Out of all of the horrible things that I had to do when I was in the Sea Org and like the things that I still feel guilty about, I think that is the worst thing that I have ever done. And to this day, I feel absolutely awful about it.
And then like Paige Kemper, you remember Paige Kemper, the sweet little old lady who was one of the CSs? She got busted for miscalling a floating needle in one of her sessions. So they did this thing. I mean, I'm sure people have heard of people in Scientology throwing people overboard. When LRH used to be on the ship, they used to literally toss students over the side into the ocean. We're not on an ocean at PAC. So they took her out into the back, into the VRU, which is that little trashy area in the back. And they did the overboarding ceremony, I guess is whatever you want to call it. They sprayed her with a hose while she was fully clothed in front of the entire technical team, all of the auditors, all of the CSs, all of the supervisors. The ethics officers took a hose and just started hosing her down. Just complete humiliation. She's in their 70s and they're working 7 days a week from 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. I mean, they're working completely nonstop. Twice when I was a public at AO, two of the auditors that was giving me auditing at the time, on several occasions, they would fall asleep in the middle of the session with me because they're so fucking exhausted. And it's like they sit there and they audit people day in and day out and do the same thing every single day. You're mentally broken. And and the combination of those two things, it just has to destroy people. And Edie was so old and she was anemic and she was physically ill. And she literally was working 24/7 at AO to try to keep it. And then one day in the middle of the day, they took her off her post and shipped her off to the RPF.
It's hard to know that my parents might not be okay. They tell me they're okay. They told me that 6 months ago. How do I know this is true? Right? Because they're going to do good roads, good weather if they consider me a suppressive person and not tell me the full truth. I have to hope in all my heart that my sister, who is still in the Sea Org, is looking out for them. Like, I'm so grateful that I wish my sister would leave the Sea Org, but at the same time, I'm glad she's there because she would advocate for them. I don't think she would let them like not be going to their doctor's appointments. I know she's going to be busy, but I'm an eternal optimist, and maybe it's like I just hold on to that. But I still want to get my parents out. I just don't know how to. So then he went, and I told him this was a bad idea. He literally went to security at PAC base and called Odo, came out, and security guard, and who we grew up with at the ranch, was a cadet, and basically told Jason, and Jason was like flabbergasted. He just said straight up, like, no, you can't see your parents. And Jason's like, why not? He's like, aren't your sister, don't you know about, you're connected to your sister? And so the next thing my brother says to Odo is like, and Odo says, okay, if you're not connected, you still need to do your conditions because you left the Sea Org. And Jason's like, I did my conditions years ago. I never heard back. And then Odo's like, I think didn't really know what to say. And then so Jason's like, so could I see them? He's like, no. Like, what place and what world is it normal that somebody thinks they could tell someone they can't see their parents and to make up excuses and what can be done? I have plans. If it does not follow through, I will file elderly abuse, because if my mother has dementia, there's no way she can be making, I mean, she's with her husband. So I don't know if that trumps all, but still, at least if I can get eyes on them now.
This is what's crazy. It's like, even from the Sea Org perspective, it would be in their best interests to
just let her
not
go.
only allow them to go, but to have them go. Like, knowing that they have family outside of the Sea Org who would want to spend the time with them, want to take care of them. Why would the Sea Org want to hold on to them? It's from, you and I both know from a Sea Org perspective, that's eating up a lot of time and resources they'd rather not spend.
Yeah.
But they
Well,
do it anyway
okay.
just to keep them away from their family members.
He said that they're getting Social Security checks. I know my parents get Social Security checks. Is that money worth it? Obviously, I don't know if that would equalize how much I mean, they're also all crammed in an apartment building that's not meant for how many people are there. I don't know if that's what it is, or if they're racking up credit card debt in their name. That's possible. I know my mom would be buying the basics when they came out and buying stuff on credit, or, because I know she didn't have a lot of money. So that's my other wonder is like, are they just using them to get money out of them while they're alive? Which is really, really dark.
Great point. That's a great point. If they're like, if we let them leave, they're going to bring with them all the evidence of all the credit card debt we've racked up in their names. Better to hold on to them.
Okay, like mom, dad, if you watch this, I'm okay with you coming out and we don't have to talk about Scientology. You can just be near me and see your grandkids. Like, it doesn't have to be, they could believe whatever they want till the day they die. But I would also like them to just live happily, be able to take walks, have good health care. If like, that's all I want. It's not too much to ask.
At what age did you start doing full-time Scientology auditor training?
I think I was 12 or 13 at the time. My parents had convinced me to start my training like at 11 or 12 years old. I did like the basic training stuff like student hat, pro TRs. There was no metering course at the time, but then I did my academy levels when I was like 13, 14, and I was on my class 4 internship auditing public at Celebrity Center when I was 14. That's when I started.
Scientologist way of thinking about children, and that their value is tied to their ability to contribute to the organization or contribute to groups or to work and to make money, has a direct impact on young people raised in Scientology. I can tell you that I and hundreds of others that I know were taken out of school at a very young age and put to work full-time in a Scientology organization. I was taken out of school at 12 years old and became a full-time Scientology staff member.
So I was working, I think like 8 to 6 or something, or 9 to 6, I can't remember. And they wanted me to go on course after. And I'm like, I'm a 15, 16-year-old girl. I'm like, I don't want to fucking spend like all my existence in the org. I'm sorry. Like, I'll do the job. I'll do, what you need me to do. I'll make sure my stats are up. But I didn't want to do 12 because they literally say on your staff contract, you have to do 12 and a half hours of study on top of your work. So I'm working a 40-hour week, and then you want me to put an additional 12 and a half hours of just study. And like I said, I have a learning disability. I didn't like course. Like, I did it, but like, I have issues with learning shit because of my education is so screwed up from growing up that I didn't like course. So I'm just like, I don't want to do that. So I got in a lot of trouble for that because Atreyu was really strict on the staff members about getting that course time in. So it was just like stuff like that. And then the underage vaping. And it's just funny to look back on because I'm like, you guys are literally hiring me illegally. You're paying me illegally. They put my pay units on Alex's paycheck to avoid having a paycheck for me because they knew I couldn't legally be on staff. So you're going to nitpick these different legal points, but then you're going to commit a huge out ethics legal thing right off the bat. Like, if I was such a liability to them, they should have just let me go and say, hey, sorry, you can't be on staff anymore.
Per week.
So, I mean, it was hard labor. It was like repainting things, throwing away trash, gardening, like different things like that. And it was every weekday morning for 3 hours, like first thing in the morning before you go on study, you do your like work study thing. And then Sunday, like you didn't do it on Saturdays, but then Sundays it was like 7 hours or something like that. So it was a lot.
So about 22 hours, over 20 hours of skilled maintenance work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're working off your debt at the rate of only like $10 an hour.
Something like that.
But you're already working 70 hours a week for nothing.
Yep.
Like, it's insanity. And are you still a minor at this point?
Yeah, I was still 15.
So you've got children crossing state lines, being forced to do labor to pay off the debt their org is supposed to be paying. It's just insanity. People think this stuff doesn't happen anymore, and it definitely does.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I do think they don't do work study currently as part of the thing, but
The only reason they don't do it currently is because the trainees are studying at night and sleeping during the day.
Exactly. But they were like, it for sure was still a thing up till 2018, like when I left it.
So as a 15-year-old, I would show up to the org just before 9 o'clock to get the course room opened up, and I would be at the org until 10:20 p.m. at night when I would catch my bus back to South Jersey. And I would do this, at this point, was it 7 days a week or 6.5? I just can't remember right now. But get this, the other people my age are still in high school. They're still playing Little League Baseball. And I'm working, I don't know, do that. It's 100 hours a week. Commuting 45 minutes each way by bus. I mean, but just realize I didn't consider myself a 15-year-old. There was this student. His name was Russell Cornell. We call him Russ Cornell. Okay, I'm 15. I probably weighed 120 pounds, 130 pounds, 140 pounds. Russ Cornell was probably 6'4", 280, just to give you some perspective there. And the best I can recall, all I was doing was either going through the doorway with him or behind him. I was not blocking his way in any way. Next thing I know, I'm waking up. He had punched me somewhere in the jaw, knocked me unconscious. I'm 15. He's at least 40. It's not getting punched that has me upset. It's just that the story involves my brother. Anyway, when I woke up, my brother was like pulling the guy off of me. At no point was I ever encouraged, or did any of the legal adults that were either responsible for me or who I worked for mention calling the police or filing assault charges. That's the punchline here. To make it very clear what does not happen in Scientology. The proper legal authorities are never involved. And when you have an organization that employs so many children, and you have an organizational structure and an organizational policy system and a fundamental operating basis that prohibits authorities from being contacted or involved, you have a dangerous environment for children. Others have experienced so much worse.
I was being told what I was thinking. I was being told I was thinking evil things. And I literally, like, I said it in my video, but like every time I had to confess something, it was literally news to me. Like it was the first time I had heard it.
And just the idea of that being run on a child like that is just sickening, absolutely sickening.
I think when I was maybe like 7 or 8, I tried to like stop talking. I was like, okay, clearly whatever is going on is out of my control because I'm not trying to do this. And I literally was like, right, that's it. Words are done.
So they said, you can't handle your ethics here at Flag. You got to fly back to Los Angeles.
Mm.
And then when she flew back to Los Angeles, she didn't, she didn't have any support from anybody.
Wow.
I didn't know this because
like when they sent her back to LA.
She was only 14 and a half, 15 years old when they sent her back to LA.
So when they sent her back, did she basically?
She struggled. She struggled. That's all she did was struggle. She was on the street with no education, no job, nothing.
Remembering what that was like, being like kept inside, confined to a room. That really triggered me, and I was remembering this stuff. And so he got in contact with me, and I was like, I really, really need to confirm some of these things that I'm remembering. you know, like an exorcism. Like I'm sat here remembering I had an exorcism and going, but really though, like really, that really happened, you know? And I asked him, I was like, did this happen? He was like, yes, this did happen. Yeah.
What is the memory that you have of what you experienced?
Okay, so I would have been on my bed, and my dad was the one who performed this. He had his obviously had done his OT levels, so I guess he knew about the body Thetans and things.
So this was some shit.
Yeah, and it's like tone 40, yell at the body Thetans to go. So I found it very traumatic because I'm like, what is happening? Like, I'm being yelled at, but you know, it for me, it was a really like scary thing. What was actually happening to me now makes me really laugh because what on earth, you know, you're yelling at aliens to leave the body, like what the heck? But that tone 40 stuff is loud. It was scary.
Oh my God, that now makes perfect sense.
Like somebody had to tell me it was okay for me to be angry with my abusers. Like you're not even allowed to identify your abusers if you're a Scientologist, never mind be angry with them. And if you try, look what happened to David Miscavige's victim. Not David, Danny Masterson's victims. Like they tried to tell their story and some of the church went,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like that one.
And in Scientology, it doesn't matter what your age is. So forget the fact that I'm 15. As part of my training, I'm still sitting there across the table from some dude in his 30s, having to handle him on the fact that he's masturbating. I'm sure I'm not the first person to talk about the weird obsession with not masturbating in Scientology.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, on my channel, I've spoken a lot about this idea of kids being trained as auditors, but I haven't spoken as much about kids being made into ethics officers.
Yeah.
And even my teenage stepsister, teenager at the time, went to flag for this magistrate training and fired back as an ethics officer for the entire Philadelphia org, the only org in all of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And she's expected to handle the ethics, which always includes sexual stuff, of every Scientologist there. It's really disturbing. Is that part of why they moved the ranch out of state, out of California? Because Wally molested all these girls in California?
Well, they restructured it.
Okay.
Yeah. But when Wally molested all these girls, he was at the Yachtsman. He calls me up and I said, what's going on? I says, I got to do the purif and I got to restart everything again. He didn't tell me what he had done.
So this was like many years after the ranch?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was getting married while he was at the Yachtsman. I said, hey, if you want, you come to my wedding. So he shows up at the wedding at Flag while these people, Carol Kingsley, Debbie Mace, and everybody around Wally knew that he had committed these crimes at the ranch. And they let him on the base. Wow. They let him hang out. They let him go to weddings. They let him do everything without exposing what he had done. So they wouldn't.
Wow. Yeah. So Scientology knew that this OT8,
class 8,
OT8,
class 7,
probably class 8.
Yeah.
OT8, class 8. Is he one of the guys who used to work with LRH on the ship or something, or no?
He met him. He said stories that he had met him.
Okay. But this guy who'd been around forever.
Yeah.
Done basically the whole bridge.
The whole bridge.
Is beating kids, beating the boys, molesting the girls.
That's right.
Scientology doesn't do anything about it.
Nothing.
Right.
Right.
But she goes, but imagine that you're a fucking pedophile, right? And you see these things that L. Ron Hubbard is saying about there's no such thing as children. We're all adults in little bodies, whatever. Look at all of the things in Scientology that if you were a fucking pedophile, you'd go, this makes it okay. This is why it's okay.
Absolutely.
This is how I justify it. This is how it's not an overt.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shit.
Absolutely.
That's right.
A 7-year-old little girl shouldn't shudder when kissed by a grown man.
Right. We were even arguing about that exact paragraph. And I'm like, that's not what that fucking paragraph means.
It does to a pedophile.
Exactly. That was her point.
Yeah.
And she goes, it does to a pedophile. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like
Okay, here's where my questions really come in.
Yeah.
We will very often hear of Los Angeles-based Sea Org teenagers having to go to Vegas to get married instead of California. And even though I've recently learned the reason, I've never heard anybody publicly explain the reason. Because if you have consent and parental consent and everything, some people might wonder, why are these marriages not happening in the state of California where the people live? Why do they go to Vegas? So let me ask you, what was your understanding why you guys were going to Las Vegas to get married instead of just getting married in California where you both lived?
Well, from what I understood, it was because of the laws, but I was told that you could get married at 16 in Vegas. I think in California, I think it was like 18, but I could be wrong. That's just what I was told.
Yes, that is wrong.
Oh, so they probably do that to not catch smoke in LA. Because I'm sure a lot of Sea Org members get married too, and they all go to Vegas. But I didn't even know like the laws on that. I was just told that.
It has to do with the fact that in the state of California, they have measures in place and procedures in place that involve judges and even therapists to make sure you're not somehow being coerced or trafficked. There's interviews that take place. There's private conversations in the judge's chambers that would take place. And they don't want anyone in the California judicial system to know why it is that these teenagers are getting married. And they don't want to have to expose the Sea Org members, or in your case, just a young Scientologist or a young staff member, to an interview with a counselor or a social worker or a psychologist, or God forbid, even a judge, having to explain to a judge, well, we work for the Church of Scientology and we don't go to school and we work 50, 60 hours a week. And like, they don't want any of that happening.
Yeah.
And that is why Sea Org members go get married in Vegas when they're teenagers instead of California.
Interesting. So that makes a lot more sense then why we went to Vegas. Oh, Lord.
What was your final departure from what was your break from Scientology? What happened? When was it?
It was a relationship, I guess, that I was in with somebody who kept pointing it out. You're really scared of this. You're really scared of this. You're really scared of this. And I would go, no, I'm not. What are you kidding me? This is great. It's the thing. It's blah, blah, blah. And then one day I had a breakdown in a grocery store and just wept for like 32 minutes. And went, you know what? I think I am. And like I said, honestly, it wasn't until, how do you get out from under, brainwashing, mind control, crazy shit? I don't know. But honestly, it wasn't until I moved across the country, until I moved to New York, that I even started to feel, it wasn't about leaving. Again, that's escaping is the right word. That's even though I didn't have to escape the Sea Org or the fucking golden era bland-based bullshit, I still felt like I was escaping. And it wasn't until I was there, away from it all, and my sister, who was still living in New York, moved to Florida. Like that was over. Like I didn't have to deal with that anymore because she's still a Scientologist. That's when I, finally started to realize that there was something to escape in the first place. It was terrifying. It's really, it's hard to explain to people. And even my best friend here in New York, like we were talking about it recently, and I had to like kind of stop in the middle of the conversation and make the point that this isn't just a different way of thinking about it. This is a fucked up system that is designed to hurt people and break people and fuck people in the head. It perpetuates dysfunction. And I really honestly think L. Ron Hubbard just figured out how to superimpose his psychoses onto other people, because everything he supposedly was trying to fix is all shit that he was guilty of or a victim of, or whatever, however you want to put that.
In that particular photo.
Look at me, don't look at me, look at me, don't look at me. He was crazy like that. He wanted to be the center of attention, but he was terrified of being looked at. He's a crazy person.
It's actually an unusual story in that 3 generations of my family left Scientology. My mom was on Solo Knots. Obviously, things had been happening with her, and it flagged that she had disagreements with the constant demands for money. There were things going on at Flag that she said she felt like they were trying to make her feel like she was crazy. And when I finally told my mom, I think it was even in that moment, she's like, I'm done. She's like, that's it. And then later on, when we would talk about like what kind of led to us finally pulling, finally hitting the I'm out of here button, it was that for her. She's like, the fact that happened to you, they covered it up, they lied about it. And there was a mall shooting, and we were there, and we were hiding in the back of a Journey store. And it was in that moment where I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. The only missing person was Shelby, and she was at Flag. And I can't leave without her. If I left without her, I never would have seen her again. They would have sent her out of the country to keep her away from me. My mom had gone and gotten baptized. This is like before, because she was at this point, she's just pushing buttons. She's like, oh yeah, I got baptized. Of course. We're non-denominational, right? I can have a relationship with God and practice Scientology, right? Isn't that what you say? Because I knew what I needed to do. I had to threaten to sue the church. Because if I threaten to sue the church, she can't be on the base. So I write this whole thing. I have it like message to the HGB building in LA. I threatened to sue the church, David Miscavige. I just go off on this whole thing. So immediately my daughter's labeled as a potential trouble source because her mother had threatened, RTC, David Miscavige, to take legal action. A lot of Scientologists that I knew, part of them not coming forward, not coming out is because of the shame. They feel shame about it. They feel, especially people who weren't born in it, who walked in as an adult and made a conscious choice to do this. I had one person tell me I can't admit it was a cult because then I'd have to admit that I gave into a lie. And that's the thing. It's not that all of it is a lie, because there are some universal truths in Scientology that are helpful because they're universal truths like gravity.
Yeah, I had wanted to leave for a little while, and I told my seniors that, and they were like, okay, well, we'll get you some auditing and we'll get you sec check. All the while I was still on post, going through this thing in months and months and months and months. And finally, when they found out about that thing, then it just turned into you're a disgusting human being and we're kicking you out, essentially. And I was gone within 2 weeks. 2008 or 2009, I think, is when I started to wake up a little bit, and I started reading stuff online, which I was really fucking scared to do when I first started with it. I would start reading an anti-Scientology article, and then I would close the computer and walk. So I was terrified because that's what I was trained to do my entire life.
What do you take away from it?
Well, I'm still working that out. Most of it I kind of have figured out, and I think compared to other people, I was one of the very lucky ones to, number one, to come out of Scientology and come out of the Sea Org alive. Prison was a piece of cake compared to being in the Sea Org. I mean, you got better accommodations, to be honest with you. The food was a little bit, okay, it's prison, it sucks. But it's not, you're not in that crazy environment where you have to be working 24/7. You're not under constant pressure to do anything. You get free healthcare when you're in prison. You get 3 hot meals a day. I exercised 2 times a day when I was in prison. I lost 25 pounds. I got in really good shape. And everybody accepted me for being gay when I was in prison, whereas in the Sea Org, I was beaten for it.
Under the guise of laundry, I left and I went to the bus depot. I took the bus back to my dad's house, and so I needed to get as far away as I could. And the blow drill was initiated very shortly after that. I narrowly avoided running into Dustin. Dustin had been sent to my house to find me because I knew they were coming. So I was like, I didn't realize they were covering all the regional airports too. I was up at the counter and I think I was about to buy a ticket or something, and I got tapped on the shoulder. I should have made a scene and been get the F away from me, all of these things in hindsight, but I think I just fell apart and started crying, and he escorts me to a restaurant in Little Italy where she like, all of a sudden the love bombing that starts. This went on over a meal for hours of this love bombing. And I'm in such a fragile state at this point. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it the proper way. And
How long was this after the passing of your mom?
very soon. My initial blow was very soon after it, maybe a couple weeks. And she was a vicious person. Like one of the people that I caught her one point before this all happened in the course room. She smiles when people are truly in pain or unhappy. She would get joy out of it. And it was the first time I'd ever seen that, like not in a movie, but she lit into me like an inch from my face, for a long period of time. Felt like 20 minutes maybe of just like screaming, spitting, like seething. You're an SP, I had some sort of breakdown. I was just like, well, if you're not going to let me go, I'm leaving this base one way or another. And if it's in a fucking body bag, then that's the way it's going to be. So I went to the roof. And the building, like I said, is 7 stories. And I sat there and I put my legs over the edge. And it was raining, I think. I was just bawling, crying. And I'm like, well, this is just how it's going to have to be because I don't see any other way out of here. And I had wanted out my family, but they're not going to let me go. So, and I was preparing myself to jump. And,
but that day when I told him that this is not for me, Dad, those are exactly my words. He leaned back like the world collapsed for him because that's his thing. That's what he believed. That's the only thing he believed and everything.
Yeah.
And
that must have been so hard.
It was just destructive for me. Destructive. There's no religion anymore. Okay. I wanted to speak out. Okay. I wanted to speak out and it feels good. Actually, it feels good after 30 years or more to tell the truth. What happened, what I had to endure, because it was an abuse, Aaron. It was the most abusive thing a human being could actually endure. Scientology, and and I know I can see your tears too, is the most abusive mental thing that somebody could endure. It's Scientology. And it doesn't come right away. It comes very slowly. Very slowly. It's well designed. He did it correctly. And Mr. Hubbard did it in a way that by the time you realize this is shit, it's almost impossible to leave. They make it that way. It's the prison of belief, right? Or my mental health, meaning for my own sake, my own head, I wanted to speak so other people don't go through this.
Yeah. And, when I say Scientology has benefited, it's because your father's story is such an example of the failure of Scientology. And yet most people who know what happened to your father, because he was so high profile, don't know that it was a product of his life in Scientology. They just don't know.
On February 25th, 2025, Aaron Smith Levin, along with fellow second-generation Scientologists Jenna Miscavige and Serge Del Mar, attended the Los Angeles Police Commissioners meeting, and each of them spoke to raise awareness of Scientology's CANRA violations.
I can tell you from personal experience of having been a Scientologist and a Sea Org member, it is 100% directly against Scientology policy to ever report another Scientologist to the civil authorities at any time for any reason, including child rape. Reporting another Scientologist to the civil authorities gets you expelled from Scientology. Raping doesn't get you expelled. Reporting it does get you expelled. CANRA is the law of the land. This is the standard we are asking Scientology to be held to. It is the standard all the religions are held to. We ask that a grand jury be impaneled in LA to investigate cover-up of child sex crimes within Scientology. We have copies of transcripts of our statements and some supplemental information for anybody who would like a copy.
As a result of this meeting, it was revealed in January 2026 that a criminal investigation has been launched into Scientology's CANRA violations by the LAPD. This should result in a groundbreaking criminal trial and will be hard for Scientology to buy their way out of, as they have done historically with many civil suits.
What you have just seen is a sampling of the over 300 hours of video testimonials available on the YouTube channel Growing Up in Scientology. Since beginning his YouTube channel over 10 years ago, in June 2015, Aaron has interviewed over 100 survivors that have stepped forward to share their stories, the vast majority of which were raised as child Scientologists, just like Aaron and his twin brother. This video presentation is dedicated to the memory of Colin Smith Levin and the many others whose lives were cut short and never got the opportunity to share their own stories of growing up in Scientology.